Blind date revealed. Incredible twist as CEO discovers the hidden truth of the woman before him. Jake sat at an upscale Chicago restaurant, lost in the flicker of chandelier lights, a storm of pride and anxiety swirling within him. At 35, he was the CEO of a rapidly rising tech startup, where success was measured in relentless ambition and sleepless nights. Yet here he was, fidgeting with his watch, the weight of expectations pressing down. Growing up in a family that prioritized hard work and integrity, Jake felt he was on the brink of transformation. Maybe tonight, the blind date he longed for would finally break the cycle of modern dating disappointments. As the minutes ticked by, his mind raced. Memories of his father's unwavering beliefs about meritocracy flooded back, how every hour slogged was a stepping stone to meaningful success. But did love require the same relentless approach? He glanced around the restaurant, feeling the tension rise. A prickling awareness that perhaps finding true connection wasn't as simple as those professional metrics he lived by. That moment, laughter enveloped his focus. Jake lifted his gaze and saw Sarah enter, radiating understated elegance. Her presence filled the space, and an unexpected thrill shot through him. She moved like a painting coming to life. There was an artistry in her very being that resonated with his weary heart. Conversation flowed easily between them, a refreshing change from previous dates that often shuffled through empty chatter. With every word, she captivated him, unwinding the tension that had coiled tightly within. Yet unease crept beneath the surface as she shared her life. Her story, cruel yet beautiful, narrated struggles of a single mother's fight against an unsympathetic world. It echoed Jake's own challenges in carving a space for himself amid whispers of doubt. The more she spoke, the more he felt their lives entwined, a tapestry rich with resilience, creativity, and grit. That awareness sparked something deep within him, a worry interwoven with burgeoning affection. Then, it came crashing down like glass shattering on marble. She mentioned her father, a name that twisted his stomach into knots. The same man whose betrayal had spiraled Jake's company into chaos. Anger blazed in his gut, twisting at his thoughts. How was it possible that someone so enchanting could be connected to the source of his greatest professional obstacle? Here she was, sitting across from him, radiating warmth while shadows of past treachery loomed between them. Before he could gather his thoughts, his inner turmoil wrestled for dominance. Should he let his feelings guide him toward a budding romance, risking everything? Or should he sever ties, staying true to his family's values and the righteousness of their unwavering work ethic? Both paths laid out before him, he felt the burden of allegiance to his family seep into his every thought, suffocating the budding possibilities of connection. Just as he was about to say something that could bridge the chasm between affection and betrayal, Sarah's eyes glimmered with fear, an intensity that mirrored his own hesitation. Did she know? The very question spiraled, clawing at his insides. Together, they sat as the clock ticked away, each silent second amplifying the tension, the weight of unspoken truths saturating the air like heavy fog. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The table felt smaller, constricting. He could hardly breathe, unsure how to breach the gaping divide that both drew and repelled them. Jake caught an unsettling flicker of vulnerability in her gaze. Was that fear of disappointment mirrored back? The tension crackled between them, alive and volatile, as two lives dangled precariously at the intersection of feeling and fate. Would they dare face the echoes of their histories, or would this moment dissolve into silence, like so many evenings before? The restaurant buzzed around them, people laughing, and yet, inside, Jake felt the silence shout louder than any conversation. Jake's unease heightened with each tick of the clock. The ambient laughter and clinking of glasses faded into a distant hum as he wrestled with the storm inside him. Should he voice the conflict swirling in his heart? The revelation of Sarah's connection to his past felt like a jagged blade pressing into his side, threatening to cut through the fragile bond forging between them. But could he let what he knew distort the excitement of this unexpected chemistry? He searched her face, looking for signs that would explore the truth, desperate to know if she had any inkling of who he was. Perhaps they were both prisoners of their pasts, shackled to narratives that neither had chosen. In that moment, he realized that the stakes were far more personal than mere career aspirations. This was about intimacy, a connection that could potentially heal or devastate. Sarah. His voice startled him, coming out more grave than intended. She looked up, her eyes wide, sensitive to his sudden shift. Her anxious expression tugged at him. He yearned to comfort her even as uncertainty clouded his own thoughts. How have you coped with your father's choices? There it was, the bridge built from vulnerability that he was both terrified and eager to cross. A flicker of surprise danced across her features, quickly replaced by resignation. She exhaled slowly, her strength evident. But just as clear was the pain of her history. It's complicated, she began hesitantly, searching for words that could encapsulate years of disappointment and struggle. He is my father, and I've spent years trying to understand who he is versus who I am supposed to be. Jake felt the layers of her struggle resonate with his own experiences. How many nights had he lain awake questioning his legacy and the shadows cast by his father's ambition? Still, here was a woman fighting against the very scars that defined their flawed familial legacies. But does knowing him help you? He probed gently, a cautious inquiry into the essence of personal discovery. She looked at him, her intuition catching the underlying challenge of his question. It's more about pushing myself to carve my own path, she confessed, determination flashing in her eyes. I refuse to let his mistakes define me. In some ways, they empower me. The fire in her voice ignited something dormant within Jake, a desire to confront his own hesitations. What did he define himself by? His company? His father's name? In truth, he felt as if he had been wearing masks of success that allowed for little actual vulnerability. Sitting across from someone willing to bear their truth was disarming, an invitation to strip away pretense. Yet, doubt coursed through him, the familiar tendrils of fear and uncertainty entwining around his resolve. How could he acknowledge what they had in the face of such history? What would it mean for his career, and for his family's reputation, if he pursued something with the daughter of his competitor? Do you think we can escape our pasts? He asked, aware of how juvenile the question sounded but undeniably urgent. Sarah's gaze pierced him, bringing clarity amidst his chaos. I think we can learn from them, maybe define them on our own terms. There was weight in her words that was not lost on him. As he absorbed her insight, his determination burgeoned, but fear flared even brighter. Would he have the courage to let go of the burdens that slowed him down? If he pursued this thread of connection, would it unravel everything he had worked for? The air between them crackled with unspoken possibilities, and the challenge loomed on the horizon. In that charged moment, Jake felt something crucial shift within him, urging him toward pathways of authenticity that had long felt out of reach. But the whisper of caution remained, and as the waitress approached their table, poised to take drink orders, Jake drew back momentarily. He needed to untangle his feelings, find out if he was ready to embrace vulnerability with Sarah, or if to protect himself was the only option left. His heart raced as he considered one last thing. Maybe the crux of personal growth wasn't solely about overcoming obstacles, but how to navigate the mysterious tapestry of connection threading through their lives. He caught Sarah's eyes again, and the moment felt laden with potential as she looked back at him. That spark ignited something in the depths of Jake's resolve. Perhaps love, too, could be a metric of personal success. What was he willing to sacrifice to discover the truth entwined in this budding romance? With that question, he knew the moment of decision was fast approaching. The deeper struggle lay just beneath the surface, and shadows from the past would have to be reckoned with. He took a breath, feeling the weight of what he was about to confront. Sarah, he started again, but dread hung heavy, as the future beckoned with uncertainty. The impact of his next words could either tether them together or unravel the delicate strands they had just begun to weave. Jake's pulse quickened, suspended in a moment that felt both infinite and fleeting, as he struggled to articulate his thoughts. The atmosphere buzzed around him, yet he felt isolated in his dilemma. How could he unveil his truth while grappling with the fear of vulnerability? What if exposing himself led to the same betrayal that had plagued his relationship with his own father, where unearthing one truth only revealed deeper fissures? The waitress arrived, breaking his concentration. He forced a smile and ordered water, being measured in his choices, cautious of the precarious balance between them. He turned back to Sarah, who was scanning the table, oblivious to the storm in his mind. Her self-assurance enticed him, yet, simultaneously, it deepened his self-doubt. Did she really know who she was, and did he? "What about you?" he asked, his tone cautious but probing. "Are you not afraid of letting your father's legacy affect your future? I mean, isn't it hard to not be influenced by it?" There was a double edge to his question, because beneath the surface, he feared his own shadow looming in his judgments about Sarah. Her expression shifted into a contemplative one, and for a moment, Jake felt the weight of the world on their shoulders. "Of course it's a concern," she replied, "but it's part of the journey. I choose to learn what I can and let go of the rest. Fear can be paralyzing if we let it take over." Her commitment to forging her own identity resonated in him, an internal echo of his own struggles, wading through expectations tethered to family legacies that he hadn't consciously chosen. Yet, the weight of what Sarah represented coiled in the pit of his stomach. Was he brave enough to embrace this connection, shattered history notwithstanding? The thought of risking everything, pursuing a venture that could destabilize his career, slowed his racing thoughts. What if their relationship didn't blossom, but rather unraveled the very fabric of who he was perceived to be? It seemed churlish to dismiss Sarah's potential as a partner based solely on legacy. A haunting question shimmered before him. Could pursuing truth lead to inevitable pain, or might it offer uncharted pathways towards something profoundly liberating? The moment held the promises of evolution, potential breakthroughs, and perhaps the chance to step outside his father's shadow, a chance he had yearned for so long. But the magnitude of change daunted him as well. He fought against the instinct to retreat, drawing a hard line in the sand defined by family loyalty, tradition, and reputation. "Jake," Sarah's voice cut through his musings. "What is holding you back? I sense there's more to you than what you let on. If we're going to explore this connection, we need honesty, unflinching honesty." Her words resonated deeply, igniting a spark of defiance within him. In that moment, Jake felt the tide of emotion shift in favor of courage. Perhaps vulnerability was not a weakness but rather a raw strength. It beckoned him to confront the complexities of his professional identity forged in familial bonds. "Okay," he began, unsure if the words would come forth as he intended. He inhaled deeply, pushing aside the clutter of apprehension. "My father, he built everything, a legacy that I've always felt compelled to uphold. An empire I never truly wanted to inherit. I've been so focused on playing the role he built for me that I lost sight of what I genuinely desire." Sarah's brow furrowed slightly, but her eyes widened with hope. For the first time, Jake saw respect frolic across her features, tethered by an unspoken understanding. Maybe this was the path forward, a cordial unraveling of expectations underlying a burgeoning connection. But as relief enveloped him, a flash of doubt flickered. Was this enough? Would he fully tear down the walls erected by years of expectation, or would he merely chip away at the facade? He searched Sarah's face for assurance, but unease shadowed her gaze. She was allowing herself to be vulnerable too, yet Jake recognized that fear lingered behind it. Their paths were intertwined, but precariously so. He would have to confront not just his doubts but the consequences that lay ahead. "I want to be honest with you," he said slowly, "about everything." Jake's heart hammered with the gravity of this admission. It tasted like freedom and risk bound in the same breath. As he prepared to continue, the questions cascaded through his mind. What awaited them if he uncovered the truth? Would the promise of connection be enough to brave the storm on the horizon? Or would it initiate a cataclysmic event, shattering everything he had built? There was no turning back now. As he opened his mouth to share more, the weight of what he was about to reveal hung heavily in the air, both exhilarating and terrifying. What came next could forge a new path for them or threaten to tear apart everything he thought he knew. "Sarah, there is something you need to know about me," he hesitated, his heart racing as the implications of his next words settled like lead in his stomach. The moment of truth had arrived, and the prospect of revelation loomed just ahead. Jake's breath caught as he searched for the right words, the enormity of his thoughts teetering on the edge of revelation. Each syllable felt like a grinding stone against the path he had been walking, the weight of his legacy hovering like an ominous cloud. The cafe around them faded into a blurred background, a mere stage upon which the true performance of his life was about to unfold. "Sarah," he began, his voice cracking slightly under the strain of vulnerability. "I've always been defined by what my father expected of me, the legacy he forged with blood, sweat, and tears. You see, I've been second-guessing my choices, trying to mold myself into what I thought would meet those expectations. But deep down, I've never really wanted to take over what he created." As the words spilled out, Jake felt an unexpected rush of clarity. Admitting this to Sarah confronted not only his professional identity, but his very sense of self. The repercussions of this confession sparked a raw and unsettling energy within him, a blend of anxiety and exhilaration. The woman across from him remained silent, her penetrating gaze pushing him further into the depths of honesty. "When I was a kid, I thought I'd follow his footsteps. But as I grew older, I realized I've been living a lie. I've dressed up for a role I never auditioned for. My passion lies elsewhere, but I've buried it under the guise of responsibility." He glanced at her, searching for understanding. "I'm terrified of failing, not because I fear disappointing him, but because I fear disappointing myself." Jake observed the emotions play across Sarah's face. He noticed the subtle shift from curiosity to sympathy, and that held him captive. She breathed deeply, as if she could sense the fragility of his admission. "That takes a lot of courage," she finally responded, her voice softening. "Courage? It feels more like walking a tightrope without a safety net," he replied, the rush of words transforming into a torrent as the floodgates opened. "What if I step off? What if I end up lost in the process? But isn't that where the real discoveries lie?" Sarah countered, her confidence igniting a flicker of resolve within him. "You could redefine the whole narrative, Jake. You could create your own legacy, one that aligns with who you truly are." She was right, yet a gnawing doubt clung to his thoughts. What if personal ambition spiraled out of control, drawing attention away from the responsibilities he felt obliged to uphold? Would such a shift alienate him from the very foundation that had given meaning to his past? "Yes, but change is daunting. I've blinded myself with worry instead of allowing the possibilities to unfold. It's almost as if the fear of failing at my own life paralyzes me," he confessed, the admission wrapping around him like an icy breath. The waitress returned with their drinks, interrupting the intense exchange. As she placed the glasses on the table, Jake struggled to suppress the sigh of relief mixing with the adrenaline surging through his veins. He knew he had only flicked at the surface of his unraveling, and yet something inside him dared to push even further. "Sarah, I want to ask for your help," he continued, surprising himself. "Help me explore this path. But I need to understand how I can break free from this cycle first. What steps can I take to build a life I genuinely want?" Her eyes sparkled with excitement and possibility, as if they were standing at the precipice of something profound, something visceral. "Why not start with small changes? Dive into your uncharted interests. Find out what inspires you, what makes your heart race." The idea thrilled him, but trepidation tightened its grip. The pursuit of his true self came with uncertainty. Stepping beyond the confines of progression deemed acceptable by his upbringing was an act of rebellion in its own right. "Okay," he said boldly, the determination blossoming amidst the storm. "I can commit to exploring my interests. I can tackle my fears instead of allowing them to dictate my life." As they discussed the potential paths ahead, A palpable energy enveloped them, a tentative bond forged in the fires of truth and shared ambition. Yet a lingering question gnawed at his thoughts. Could he truly navigate the tumultuous waters that lay ahead, or would he find himself again confined by the chains of expectation? With every moment that passed, the weight of his family legacy loomed ever larger, demanding his attention. Yet something within him reshaped that very legacy from a burden into a challenge, a call to arms to redefine everything he had been conditioned to accept. "Jake," Sarah said, a thoughtful blush creeping across her cheeks, "this journey is just beginning. We'll face the complications together, right?" "Together," he agreed, but as he spoke, an undercurrent of apprehension flickered through him, a shadow of doubt that echoed in the recesses of his mind. Deciding the significance of this venture would test not only his resolve but the potential of what they could build together. As their conversation deepened and dreams began to emerge, Jake realized he was standing at a crossroads. What if this journey demanded more of him than he was prepared to give? The pieces lay before him like a puzzle, yet the clarity to see the image remained obscured. With the hope of new beginnings taking hold, Jake's gaze softened on Sarah. "I'm ready to explore this." But his voice trailed off, heavy with unspoken fears. "Is there anything else I should be prepared for?" The haunting uncertainties loomed larger as he studied her expression, knowing that what lay ahead could either redefine everything or bring the whole structure of his life crashing down. Would he take a leap into the unknown, ready to confront the consequences of what he desired? He felt the question hang in the air, waiting for an answer that could determine the fate of their connection. Would he dive in headfirst or retreat back into the safety of confinement? That moment of decision hung like a tightrope strung above darkness, teetering on the brink of revelation. Jake stepped out of the cafe, the cool air embracing him like a long-lost friend. He had shared pieces of his soul with Sarah, and while the vulnerability had been unsettling, it had also ignited a spark he hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, he sensed a shift. But what kind of shift? What exactly was he ready to explore? Rather than feeling liberated, he felt the weight of expectation this time, his own. As he wandered the streets, the city pulsed with life around him, a stark contrast to the internal chaos swirling within. Each bustling passerby seemed to remind him of his fears and doubts. Was exploring his interests merely an escape, or a path to his true self? The irony struck him. In his pursuit of authenticity, he was still shackled by the fear of failure. He turned a corner, drawn to a small art studio that had always piqued his curiosity. As he approached the entrance, a flicker of inspiration ignited within him. He paused, grappling with the intensity of the impulse surging through his veins. What if he allowed himself to explore painting, an interest he had let slip away like sand through his fingers? Plucking up the courage, Jake pushed open the door and was greeted by the familiar scent of oils and canvases. The space was intimate, filled with vibrant shades and the soft whispers of creativity in progress. He noticed a group of people, each at different stages of their artistic journey, with paint-splattered hands and expressions of pure focus. It was intoxicating. Jake walked around the gallery, absorbing the colors and forms, feeling the tug of unexplored talent. Yet, that feeling was pierced by a pang of insecurity. Was he truly an artist, or simply a poseur trying desperately to belong to a world he wasn't cut out for? The instructor, an older woman with a warm smile, approached him. "First time here?" she asked, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. He nodded, stumbling over his words. "I've never really painted before, but I've always wanted to try." "Then today is your day," she exclaimed. "The only requirement is the courage to start. That's all anyone needs to begin." Courage. It echoed in his mind, bringing him back to his conversation with Sarah. She had encouraged him to be bold, to take risks. What if the act of painting wasn't just about the art itself but also a step towards reclaiming his identity? Gathering his resolve, Jake joined the class, the nervous tension palpable as he picked up a brush for the first time. It felt foreign yet exhilarating, each stroke an invitation to confront his deeper emotions. He liberated himself from perfectionism with each movement, allowing the colors to run wild across the canvas without the constraints of expectation. Time faded into the rhythm of creativity, and for the first time in years, he lost himself in the moment. Art became a conduit for his unspoken thoughts, a silent dialogue of self-discovery. With every brushstroke, he unearthed parts of himself that had been buried under the weight of obligation. As the class wrapped up, pride swelled in his chest. He had created something that was undeniably a manifestation of renewed hope. He glanced at his art, noting the raw fluidity of the colors, a reflection of his chaotic yet exhilarating emotions. Yet, the thrill of growth was met with the realization that embracing this new path could fracture the relationships around him. How would his family react? Would they understand, or dismiss his artistic aspirations as a foolish departure from tradition? The questions spiraled, threatening the clarity he had just begun to cultivate. When Jake returned home, the weight of the canvas rested heavily on his mind. He needed to share his experience with Sarah, but uncertainty gnawed at him. Would she admire his journey, or question his deviation from the presumed path of success? Her support lit a fire within him, yet he feared how others, especially his father, would perceive this shift in direction. After a restless night filled with countless scenarios, Jake knew that hiding away from judgment wouldn't protect him. He needed to confront it head-on. Perhaps the challenge wasn't just to discover his passions, but to defend them too. The next morning, he sent Sarah a message, inviting her to see the piece he had created. He felt vulnerable laying bare his journey, yet he also felt a newfound determination. Jake wasn't just looking for support. He was seeking validation for his choices, his journey framed outside the confines of familial obligation. There was a momentary hesitation before he hit send, the digital message lighting up his screen like a beacon of hope and fear. What if she reacted negatively? What if his leap into the unknown resulted in more fallout than fulfillment? As he paced, waiting for her response, Jake realized it was time to step beyond the shadows of expectation he'd lived under for so long. This wasn't just about painting. It was about painting a brighter picture of his future. Now the question lingered. Would Sarah feel as inspired by his journey as he did? Or would she create ripples of doubt that would challenge his newly discovered ambition? As he anxiously awaited her reply, Jake stood on the precipice of a decision that would test his courage and clarity once more. Would he embrace the unknown? Or would he allow fear to drown out the excitement of discovery that crackled in the air? Jake stared at his phone, the seconds stretching into an eternity as he waited for Sarah's response. Each vibration from the device sent a jolt through him, his heart racing with anticipation and dread. Would she understand his leap into painting? Would she think he was abandoning his responsibilities, throwing away years of hard work for a momentary whim? The thought gripped him tightly, a shadow threatening to overwhelm the light he felt from his recent experience. Finally, his phone lit up with her message. "Hey, can't wait to see it. When can we meet?" The simplicity of her words was a balm to his anxiety. Yet beneath that comfort lurked a question: would she see him differently after this revelation? Emboldened, Jake quickly texted back, proposing a time later that week. As he arranged their meeting, he felt a rush of determination. He would present his painting not merely as an artwork, but as a testament to his desire for self-discovery. This was a pivotal moment, one that demanded he be authentic not just in his artistic expression but in his relationship with Sarah as well. The days leading up to their meeting buzzed with nervous energy. Each morning was a fresh battle against the self-doubt that threatened to intrude on his excitement. What if she turned out to be less supportive than he had hoped? What if his family, despite his efforts at honesty, dismissed his passion outright? Eventually, the day arrived. Jake could barely focus as he prepared for their meeting. The painting, propped against his living room wall, was both a source of pride and anxiety. With every glance, it whispered reminders of his vulnerability. He took a moment to reassess the work, the swirling colors a mirror of his tumultuous emotions. Each stroke represented a part of him he was now ready to present to the world. Riding a wave of adrenaline, Jake drove to the cafe where he had first shared his fears with Sarah. He chose to arrive early, pacing the floor as he imagined her response. He had anticipated this moment, but now that it was here, the weight of it began to settle heavily on his chest. When Sarah arrived, Her radiant smile served as a welcome sight amidst his internal storm. She had a knack for lighting up the space around her, and as she approached him, he felt a flicker of hope rekindle. "I'm excited to see your painting," she exclaimed, genuine enthusiasm sparkling in her eyes. Her enthusiasm buoyed him, momentarily easing his anxiety. But as they sat down, Jake sensed the ever-present tension lurking beneath their interaction. Would she truly appreciate his journey, or would it merely be a facade that crumbled under scrutiny? After some small talk, Jake carefully directed their conversation towards his art. "I've been painting," he said, the words spilling from him in a rush. "I created something I want to show you." He watched as Sarah's expression shifted from casual interest to genuine intrigue. "I can't wait. Show me." With a deep breath, Jake revealed the painting. He observed her closely, searching for signs of detachment or skepticism. Instead, her eyes widened, awash with understanding as she took in the vibrant, chaotic strokes. A smile spread across her face, filling him with relief. "This is incredible, Jake. It's so raw and emotional," she praised, leaning closer to examine the details. "You've really captured something here." Her encouragement flooded him with warmth, dissolving the walls of hesitation that had built up inside. "I've never really allowed myself to express these feelings before," he admitted, feeling a mixture of pride and trepidation. "Why? You're an artist now. This is your gift." Her words served as both a validation and a challenge. Could he truly be an artist, or would he forever hesitate at the edge, denying his emerging identity? The glow of her admiration sparked a thought. Perhaps his fear wasn't just about what Sarah might think, but about whether he could commit to this path. The shift he experienced felt monumental. Could he handle the fallout once his family learned about this new chapter? Just as he started to embrace the notion that he might actually belong in this new world, Sarah's next question caused his stomach to drop. "So what's next for you? Are you thinking of exhibiting this?" Her suggestion was exhilarating yet terrifying. The idea of putting his work on display was both intoxicating and paralyzing. The challenge pushed against his comfort zone, a test that could either embolden or dismantle the progress he had made. "Exhibit?" he echoed, grappling with the concept. Was he really ready to share his journey so publicly? As Sarah continued to encourage him, Jake felt both excitement and dread coil around each other within him. He stood at the precipice of a true commitment not just to his art but to his true self, unmarred by others' expectations. The shadows of his past tugged at him, warning of the potential fallout of embracing such a bold path. But deep down, he also recognized that this was his moment to seize. Would he retreat into the safety of conventionality, allowing self-doubt to dictate his journey? Or would he take the leap towards a future illuminated by passion and creativity? The answers felt tantalizingly close, yet the ripple effects of his choices loomed large before him. The cafe around him buzzed with life, and amid it all, he made a silent vow to honor this newfound identity. The choice was his. Would he dare to confront the unknown? And then, in that fragile moment of revelation, a new, urgent question formed in his mind. What if expressing this journey led not just to personal fulfillment, but also the confrontation of those who had doubted him all along? The time had come for more than exploration. The challenge ahead was a test of his courage to stand against potential upheaval. Jake spent the next few days in a state of frenetic energy and mounting anxiety. For the first time, he dedicated his evenings wholly to painting, a practice that had once felt like a distant dream. Each canvas became a battleground he fought against his doubts, wielding brushes like weapons. The chaotic strokes he embarked on whispered concepts he had only just begun to understand: identity, passion, and the urgent need for authenticity. As he mixed colors, Jake confronted the rawness of his emotions. Fear and excitement surged within him, creating a tension he could almost taste. He could hear Sarah's words echoing in his mind, urging him to seize this opportunity. "What's next for you?" It was a simple question, but it loomed larger by the day, demanding a response he wasn't ready to provide. Jake's professional life had always been defined by safety and predictability. The thought of launching an exhibition was radical, akin to jumping from a plane and hoping the parachute would deploy. Would he truly allow his work to be dissected, critiqued, praised, or even mocked? Could he endure the vulnerability of exposing his heart to the world, knowing that not everyone would appreciate its nuances? The thought of his family added another layer of complexity. Knowing they had dismissed his artistic pursuits in the past fed his anxiety. Their expectations felt like a cage, its bars forged from practicality and fear. The contrast between their view and Sarah's encouraging perspective intensified his internal struggle. If he pursued this new path, could he maintain his relationships without compromising who he was beginning to become? With each painting he produced, Jake felt himself inching closer to an answer. His latest piece, a blend of energetic bursts and calculated tranquility, spoke volumes about his journey, about doubt morphing into conviction. He could see flickers of potential in the dimensions, shapes, and colors. Perhaps he was capable of more than just painting. He could innovate, explore, and maybe even exhibit his work. After a long night of painting, he decided to reach out to Sarah once more. He texted, "Would you help me figure out how to exhibit my work?" The message sat heavy on his mind. Flame and water, two opposing forces battling within him, were ignited by the prospect of support laced with fear. As he awaited her response, the questions that had plagued him continued to swirl like paint mixing on a palette. When her response came, it was immediate. "Absolutely. Let us start planning. I know some places you could check out." Excitement bubbled within him, but so did hesitance. This was happening. He was stepping onto a path laden with risk. After the initial exhilaration faded, dread crept back in. What if he plunged forward only to crash into disappointment? The next days were filled with discussions about logistics, venues, and potential themes. Sarah's enthusiasm acted as an anchor for Jake, guiding him through his wavering resolve. They met multiple times, sketching out plans, exchanging ideas, and sketching designs that lined his hopes with practicality. One afternoon, as they sat together amid a sea of half-finished canvases and scattered sketches in his small studio, a question lingered in the air. Would they be ready for the skepticism of others? "People will always have something to say, Jake. But you need to trust yourself before expecting others to," Sarah said, her eyes sincere. Her reassurance offered a glimpse of clarity, but Jake felt the weight of her words settle deep within him. Learning to trust himself was a challenge that ran deeper than artistic expression. It involved accepting his past, confronting his fears, and welcoming the potential fallout. Despite the continued pressure from self-doubt, a latent fire ignited within him. He felt compelled to create one more piece, one that personified the transformation he was undergoing. As he dipped his brush into vibrant hues, he channeled the culmination of all his experiences, the determination to embrace his new identity unreservedly. With each stroke applied to the canvas, Jake understood that the canvas was not merely a surface. It was a reflection of his inner journey. But as he stepped back, staring at the swirling colors, a narrow path revealed itself, a daunting and uncertain one. Facing the unknown often meant confronting adversaries, both within and outside. The flickering flames of ambition fought against the chilling winds of tradition. This was not just about creating art. This was about defining himself for what lay ahead. What awaited him would not just be the vibrancy of his art on display, but also the confrontation of the old self he hoped to leave behind. Would he have the strength to face his fears, or would he let their shadows pull him back into an existence he was desperately trying to escape? With determination coursing through him, Jake pondered the next stage of his journey, fully aware that change would demand not just creativity but courage. Would he find both, or would the uncertainty of it all consume him? The answers remained just out of reach, promising an exhilarating yet terrifying journey ahead. Jake stared at the canvas, its surface splattered with the raw colors of his struggle. Days had slipped away, merging into nights filled with intense creation. His brushes seemed to take on lives of their own, twisting emotions into forms he had never dared to express. Yet amidst the frenzy of artistic expression, the gnawing knot of uncertainty tightened, that he contemplated the idea of an exhibition not merely as a showcase of his art but as a crucible for self-judgment. Each stroke was a testimony to his courage, but that courage felt precarious. Could he truly stand behind his creations when every doubt, every lingering whisper of inadequacy threatened to unravel the very fabric he had woven? As he prepared for their next meeting, his mind replayed Sarah's words, "Trust yourself." Trust felt like a distant echo, muffled beneath layers of self-doubt and fear of rejection. What did it truly mean to trust oneself in a world so quick to critique? The day arrived for their scheduled discussion, and Jake found himself pacing the small studio. His heart beat a relentless rhythm as he rehearsed his commitments to Sarah, his plans, his fears, and ultimately, his vision for the exhibition. He let the anxiety swirl around him like colors bursting from the palette, and each saturated thought demanded to be acknowledged. When Sarah arrived, her energy infused the room with a strange mix of warmth and urgency. They quickly settled down with sketches spread across the table, each representing not just potential artworks but dreams still held in limbo. "These are all fantastic, Jake," she said, her face alight with enthusiasm. "I can already see stories unfolding just waiting to be told." Jake felt a flicker of pride ignite within him, but it was soon overshadowed by his inner turmoil. Are we ready for this, though? What if no one comes? What if they don't understand? The words escaped him, raw and unfiltered. He hated feeling so vulnerable, but it was better to voice the fears that clung to him like shadows. "They will come," she replied, her voice steady. "You have to believe in the power of your work. It's yours, your truth, and the world deserves to see it." Jake took a deep breath, battling the instinct to retreat. He sensed the stakes escalating. This wasn't simply an exhibition. It was a declaration of his identity. With each piece of art bearing witness to his journey, he knew he was demanding attention, the kind of attention he had shunned for far too long. "Why do we create art, really?" he asked, partially to probe Sarah's belief and partially to challenge his own blurry ideologies. "Is it truly for others? Or is it a mirror reflecting our innermost selves?" "Art is both," she replied thoughtfully, leaning back in her chair. "It's a dialogue. You create for yourself first, to explore who you are, and then you open the door for others to walk through and relate or even challenge you. But that requires vulnerability. Own that." As she spoke, a sliver of understanding pierced through his chaos. The dialogue wasn't just about art. It was about existence. Jake had long wrestled with defining himself in a world of expectations. What if this exhibition could serve as a catalyst for change, not only for his audience but for himself? "I want to own this," he confessed. "I want this to mean something more than just being an artist. I want to be seen." His resolve shifted. The fear of how others would perceive him began to take a back seat. If he was willing to embrace the beauty of imperfection, to let his art speak from the depths of his experience, then he was halfway there. However, a shadow loomed over that budding clarity, his family's expectations. He knew they would have questions, criticisms, and possibly harsh judgments. The thought of disappointing them, of straying too far from their vision for him, twisted his stomach. "Jake?" Sarah's voice broke through the spiraling doubts. "What do you really want? What is your ultimate goal for this exhibition?" The question landed hard. He felt his heart race, each thump amplifying the tension lingering in his chest. What was it that he wanted? Approval? Liberation? Acceptance? "I want to break free," he replied, the words tumbling out with startling clarity. "To show them I am more than they think. To prove that this journey matters." As the conversation flowed, Jake's vision for the exhibition began to crystallize. Yet he could sense the line he was about to traverse, the bridge between past expectations and self-defined purpose. Would his courage hold strong, or would he falter as his old self tugged insistently at him from behind? With a mixture of anticipation and dread, he turned to Sarah. "Let us make this real together. But it won't just be for them. It will be for us, for who I am becoming." Little did he know, unveiling the truth about himself would not only alter the perception of others but would thrust him into a confrontation with his own fears and the ghosts of familial expectations that loomed larger than life. What awaited him on the horizon was a moment that shifted his narrative entirely, a twist he hadn't seen coming. As he embarked on this transformative journey, the canvas of his life awaited its most colorful strokes. What revelations would surface as he navigated this duplicated threshold? Would he emerge unscathed? Or would the confrontation reveal deeper truths he wasn't ready to face? The day dawned bright, the soft morning light filtering through Jake's studio window. The vibrant hues of his canvas pulled him in as if urging him to embrace the day with open arms. But beneath that initial burst of inspiration lay the weight of anticipation. He had decided today was the day he would visit his family. Long overdue, the encounter loomed heavy with the unspoken expectation they held for him. He moved toward the easel, his fingers grazing the texture of the paint that had recently dried. It was a tangible reminder of his commitment to authenticity. This was his territory, his escape from the suffocating pressures that awaited him. The canvas now represented a version of himself he was beginning to recognize. But how would that resonate with the people who had always seen him through the lens of who they wanted him to be? Grabbing a brush, Jake began to paint, his strokes now sharper and more deliberate. The colors swirled together in an explosion of emotion that mirrored his internal chaos. The revelation he had with Sarah the previous day hung like a specter above him. To show them I am more than they think. The motto reverberated, almost tauntingly, as reality beckoned him to confront his past. He stepped back, observing the painting a burst of colors intertwined with shadows. It was both chaotic and serene, much like his mind, a representation of his conflicting identities. Snapshots of flushing excitement mixed with trepidation painted scenes within him. How would he showcase the depths of his journey to those who saw only the surface? The hours slipped by, a continuous dialogue between his emotions and the colors he laid down. But time was slipping too, and he needed to face the music. Time to navigate the minefield of expectations was narrowing, and Jake felt that familiar knot tightening in his chest. When he arrived at his family's home, the familiar facade evoked both nostalgia and apprehension. Inside, they were indistinct, voices layered with affection but laced with underlying tension. His mother's expression softened as she engulfed him in an embrace, but it was his father's scrutinizing gaze that sent an electric shock of anxiety through him. "Jake, how's the art thing going?" he asked in a tone that suggested he had little faith in his son's aspirations. The question dripped with an ulterior motive, an almost glaring challenge, as if needing Jake to justify his existence before him, as if a career in art was frivolous and dissatisfying. "It's going well, actually," Jake replied, each word feeling heavier than the last. He held his ground, letting the flush of uncertainty swell inside, mingled with a fierce need to defend his choices. "I've been working on some pieces for an exhibition." His mother's face lit up at the mention of art, a flicker of support, but Jake could feel the way his father's brow furrowed. "An exhibition? You mean showing your work to actual people?" His father's condescension was palpable. "Hope you're not quitting your real job for this hobby of yours." It stung, cutting deeper than Jake expected. They saw him as a dreamer, an idealist, a fleeting notion of a life lived in colors and strokes rather than responsibilities tied to stability. "It's not a hobby, Dad," he asserted. "This is who I am." A silence thickened the air, and he could feel the weight of unexpressed words pressing against them. Jake stared at his father, caught in a cycle of dread and resilience, and for the first time, he recognized the existential fury pulsing within him. Was he ready to embrace this confrontation fully, or would he retreat into the safety of their expectations once again? "Just give it a chance," he said, testing the waters of his resolve. The tone had shifted. He was tired of apologizing for his choices. This wasn't just a clash of opinions, it was a fight for his identity. His father's silence lingered, filled with unspoken judgments. The impending conversation he craved to reveal the person he had become hung on the precipice. Jake could feel the ground beneath his feet shifting, every heartbeat screaming for authenticity. As he turned to his mother, seeking a lifeline, Jake felt a shrouded possibility. "Maybe you could come to the exhibition," he suggested, "see what I've been working on." His own voice surprised him, bold and unwavering. "What would be the point?" his father interjected, skepticism seeping through. With each word, Jake realized this was more than just about art. It was about family. Could he persevere through the weight of their belief? Would they ever understand the intricacies of who he was becoming? As the tension mounted, Jake's South thoughts danced dangerously close to despair. Yet an ember flickered. He could no longer tiptoe around their expectations. The time had come to face not just them, but the walls he had built within himself. He had eventually to redefine lines he had long accepted as immutable. What awaited him as he navigated this familial battlefield? Would clarity emerge from this confrontation, or would he find himself ensnared in old narratives, clinging to past identities long overshadowed by the vibrant hues of who he could be? Jake stood resolute at the precipice of a confrontation that would redefine him. The air crackled with unspoken words as he glanced at the faces of his family, their features etched with expectation and skepticism. There, surrounded by familiar walls that echoed with memories, he felt the weight of years spent molding himself to fit their vision. Seeing my art isn't just a show, he began, searching for the right cadence to convey his newfound strength. It's about understanding who I am beyond what you think I should be. As the words left his lips, they resonated, echoing through the room like a declaration. His father's brow knitted tighter, the skepticism unyielding. But careers should be stable. Jake, art is fleeting. You have real responsibilities. What are you thinking as you juggle this distraction? That sharp critique hurt, slicing through his freshly built confidence. Yet something deep within him rebelled against giving in. Art is more than a distraction, Dad. It's my voice. All my life, I followed your path, and I'm telling you now, I want to forge my own. This isn't just about the exhibition, it's about stepping into a reality where I choose who I want to become. His mother, watching the exchange closely, offered a glimmer of hope with her gentle nod. We just want what's best for you, she said softly, stepping into the role of peacemaker amidst the rising tensions. But you need to show that this is what you truly want, and that it's worth risking everything we've built together. Maybe that's the point, Jake countered, his conviction solidifying. Maybe what I've built in art matters, perhaps even more so than what you expect me to inherit. I'm not rejecting my past, I'm redefining it. Silence enveloped the room like a shroud, leaving Jake to battle his internal winds of self-doubt while he awaited their responses. The faces of those who loved him swirled with mixed emotions: concern, confusion, and perhaps a hint of realization. I'm going to exhibit my work, he affirmed, the statement cementing his resolve. And I want you both to be there. This isn't just about showing art. It's about inviting you into my journey. I need to create space for who I am becoming. The shift in the atmosphere was palpable. He could see flickers of understanding dance in his mother's eyes, while his father grappled with something deeper, a reluctance to accept how Jake had pulled away from traditional expectations. Fine, his dad finally allowed, crossing his arms with a defensive posture that reminded Jake of their years of conflict. Show me your work. I still don't understand it, but I'll be there. Thank you, Jake replied, his heart racing not just with relief but also with the exhilaration that came with piercing through the veil of doubt. As he left his family home that day, he felt lighter, as if layers of expectation had shed from his being. The air outside brimmed with potential, a new kind of freedom in the choices ahead. One where he owned not just his artistry but his identity. Days melted into one another as the exhibition approached. Each stroke of paint on canvas felt like a battle against self-doubt, a reaffirmation of courage. But rather than merely confronting those inner shadows, he was now building a new legacy, one based on authenticity and passion intertwined. On opening day, Jake arrived at the gallery, heart pounding, a vibrant mix of excitement and anxiety coursing through him. As guests flooded in, an electrifying energy filled the room. Each piece stood as a testament to his travels through doubt and discovery, narrated in colors and textures that spoke of resilience. When Sarah arrived, her pride illuminated the gallery. "These are incredible," she marveled, her eyes dancing from canvas to canvas. "You've told your story so beautifully." Their shared excitement simmered, and Jake felt the warmth of affirmation flow through him, once more a validation beyond familial expectations, nurturing the transformative essence of who he had fought so hard to become. As the night unfolded, he spotted his parents lingering near one of his pieces. There was a subtle transformation in their expressions, a flicker of recognition. His mother turned towards him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Jake, I see you here," she whispered, emotion thick in her voice. "This is you." His father nodded, that familiar tension dissolving slowly, as if their years of conflict were being rewritten in hues of mutual respect. "You're proud of this, aren't you?" he asked, an acknowledgement that resonated deeply. More than anything, Jake replied, standing taller, unwavering in his identity as an artist unabashedly committed to authenticity. In that encapsulating moment, surrounded by those who had once cast him in shadow, Jake embraced a profound realization his journey had transformed him, not just as a creative, but as a man learning to carve his own path in the world, unchained from expectations. He could begin to breathe. The essence of a life well lived was materializing right in front of him as the night wound down. Jake stood at the epicenter of a new beginning, filled with gratitude for the love that had emerged amid the chaos. Each stroke on canvas had unraveled not only the beauty of art, but the essence of who he was becoming. He smiled at Sarah, the pride reflected in her gaze adding fuel to his transformative fire. "This is just the beginning," he whispered, feeling a sense of solid confidence that was irrevocably reshaping his life. With the echoes of his past fading, Jake was ready to step into the future defined by his own narrative, creatively and personally. He had achieved his first tangible success, a journey of individual transformation that he would carry with him as he painted the canvas of his evolving identity. Now, it's your turn to step into your own transformative journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.